There's a line in Interstellar where there's a robot called Tars, and the robot says, "What honesty setting do you want?" So with potential clients, before you go in hard with a kidney punch, you have to establish what's the tolerance of this business for honesty.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Founding Fathers. For those of you who don't know us, I'm Dan Cashman. This is Yaakov. Together, we are the co-founders of Cashman Klein. You can find us at cashmanklein.com. We're a leadership development firm. In addition to that, probably more importantly, we are also fathers. And so here on the Founding Fathers podcast, we interview other founders and CEOs just like us who also happen to be dads, talk about all the overlap between the two worlds and all the many leadership lessons that you can pick up from both of those worlds. And so joining us today is Russell Watkins. We are super excited to have him on here. And he is the co-founder of Sempai, which is a lean consultancy based out of the UK that their focus is on real world lean and real world results and making it translatable to the shop floor. So Russell, I'm going to turn it over to you for an intro, and let us know a little bit about yourself and Sempai.
Sure, will do. Thank you for having me on, gents. I love coming on podcasts because it gives me a chance to explore things that I don't normally get to explore. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Sempai, yes, we work all over the UK and Europe and also different various parts of the world, China and Japan. We were founded in 2007 to help any business, primarily manufacturing, who want to improve. Doesn't matter how good they are, as long as they want to go somewhere, then we can help them to improve the way they flow stuff through their business, the way it works. So in a nutshell, we transfer true lean capability to the hidden heroes in manufacturing generally. The word senpai is a Japanese inflected word. It's a relationship, senpai, kohai. So we don't flog days, we don't flog belts. Our job is to pass on knowledge so that you haven't got to call us twice to solve the same problem. Worked on 4 continents and love working. I mean, you must have heard this 1,000 times, from the boardroom to the shop floor, but I particularly enjoy working on the shop floor because there are the smartest brains there who didn't get a break somehow or didn't manage to jump on an opportunity, but their process and engine is as good as anything else. And Sempai has 2 arms. We do consulting and we have Sempai Guide, which is an online, like award-winning lean platform for online training. But yeah, that's Sempai.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Sempai, when I saw that, a little bit of lean background and some of the folks we work with as well, what's the difference between Sempai and Sensei?
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, funnily enough, sensei is a really charged word. You might have seen that sensei is a controversial word in lean manufacturing, especially people who self-appoint themselves as sensei, because it's the purists out there say you can't really nominate yourself as a sensei. That comes from other people. So I will never call myself a sensei, and I'm pleased to say nobody does call me sensei. So I like the senpai kohai relationship because it suggests that you don't get to a place where you stop learning.
Yeah.
So senpai is the person who is more senior, often by wisdom, but grey hair doesn't matter. But it's generally, it's not age. It is, you've got more scars, you've seen more, you've had more success and more failure. So you have more knowledge and skill, and a kohai works with you to leach that out of you and intends to try to get past you in terms of their knowledge and skill eventually. So it's a development relationship, but it isn't a hugs all the time, hugs and apple pie. It is, it can be a very challenging relationship as well because you want to learn. So sometimes buttons get pushed.
Yeah, I saw you guys had that listed as one of your values, tough love.
Tough love with rapport matters. It's funny, I was talking about it recently. So I like movies. Do you like movies?
Yeah, I love movies.
Great. Well, there's a British director. Actually, he's mid-Atlantic. He has American parents as well. So his name's Christopher Nolan. He's done lots of films: Interstellar, Inception, Tenet. You know him, yeah. There's a line in Interstellar where there's a robot called Tars, and the robot says, "What honesty setting do you want?" So with potential clients, the NLP training I've had, tells me establish rapport. Before you go in hard with a kidney punch, you have to establish what's the tolerance of this business for honesty. And if they say, yeah, just tell us brutally, then you start a little lower than that. And then you hoik it up to where they say they want to hear the brutal honesty. And then you gauge your action. But you have to mix that with a bit of humility, I think. Some of the greatest lessons I've had are people reminding me that there's so much I don't know. And the humility is, if we go into a manufacturer, they've got 40 to 2,000, 3,000 mortgages and rents that are reliant on them. We've got 7 of us here, and we've never gone all in. We are professional stone throwers. So we have to remember that at no point have we gone all in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would imagine in that world, the role of the kohai probably becomes almost even more important than the senpai in that scenario. Like, are they willing and able?
Yeah. Well, it's it's funny. It ties back into, how do you choose the next manager in somewhere like a manufacturing business? And there's an argument that there are 3 things you're looking for. And of course there's attributes, there's attitude, there's behavior, but there's 3 things. Able to learn, willing to learn, able to lead.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go far wrong in choosing a kohai, in that you're not bothered about what they know now, but they have to be able to get somewhere different. They have to want to get somewhere different. And they have to be willing to put themselves apart from other people to lead and feel the pain of that.
What comes to mind for me when you say, I think the first time I saw you or on YouTube was, I don't know if it was the first time or not, but first time I watched like a long form was you and Ryan Tierney. And I think you were taking down one of his plants. And I was like, man, this is good stuff here, because there's plenty of guys out there like Ryan that are like, okay, well, let me tell you that, let me show you why you should listen to us. And at the same time, there's not a lot of guys out there that are willing to give tough love. And I'm watching the two of you go back and forth. I was like, man, this is fantastic.
It was great fun, but it was again, the rapport was there. Ryan is famous for he would take a 4-year-old child around the shop and lead them by their tiny hand, and if at the end the 4-year-old child had some feedback, Ryan would write it down as if Taiichi Ono himself was giving feedback. He lacks a filter, the right kind of filter, which is he doesn't have a defensive ego about him, so he takes a lot of inputs. That was great fun. And it's all done in the right kind of spirit as well, as in, I just want to help you. The spirit is, let's have a look at where your business is. Let's have a look at where you want to go. And from where I am with my knowledge and skill, and from what I've seen today, these are the next 2 or 3 things that I reckon could either trip you up or make a difference.
Yeah.
And they can take or leave that. But the 2-second lean community, they do some things very well. There are some gaps in the thinking way, but they do some things very well. And one of the most misunderstood is people opening their doors to do tours.
Mm.
And some people think that they're doing tours as an act of ego, as in, look at us. But actually, it's the total opposite of that.
Yeah.
They're doing tours, aren't they, to A, keep them honest, and B, to get feedback and to make sure that the plant is always in a good condition. It is a discipline, which is a great way of thinking.
Russell, curious to hear about the other side of the company that you run, your personal one, your family.
Yes.
Tell us a little about the employees there, the partners there. How's that business doing?
It is fun. We've been doing it for 20 years now. There are 7 of us in total. My co-founder and I run it. And my co-founder is also my wife, Steph. There's 9 of us in total. We have 7 freelancers who work on various things. It is tremendous fun because we don't report to anybody. And that matters to us to have freedom about what work we choose and don't choose. Of course, over the years, when things haven't been going so well, you sometimes look at each other and say, wouldn't it be easier if we just worked for somebody else? But overwhelmingly, it's been fabulous. And I gave both of our children. So I'm a dad of 2 kids. We have a 26-year-old Millie and a 23-year-old Archie. And I gave both of them a chance to work in lean because I reckon lean thinking is one of the best things you can have, whatever you do. So at school in the UK, they get a chance to have a week work experience. So I took them with me, 4 factories, few nights away, somewhere interesting on the Friday, and said, look, this is the only time I will hold your feet to the fire to go into a factory. If it tickles something in you, great. If it doesn't, I'll leave you be. They both enjoyed the week. One of them is now a National Trust ranger, so works outside with flora and fauna, and the other one is a chartered surveyor. So neither of them love manufacturing, but both of them have a bit of lean thinking about them.
So 26 and 23, but you started the company in 07. So you had little ones when you decided to make this move.
Yeah. Do you know, in your guidance beforehand, you said, tell us about your origin story as a founder and as a dad. And those two things are tightly linked. One caused the other. So I was working for a big construction manufacturer in the UK. And I have many character flaws. One of them is I will cut my nose off to spite my face. I struggle to be managed. And my boss, this company had a particular command and control structure. And my boss, who was a nice fella, he was group manufacturing director, called me into his office on a Friday afternoon and said, you're going to work in Savannah in Georgia. And I said, blimey, did you just say, do I want to go and work in Savannah in Georgia? And he said, no, you're going to work in Savannah in Georgia. Well, I'm not entirely sure that's the way that I operate. Anyway, I went home for the weekend. By coincidence, got a phone call from an old boss, coded message, we're after a lean person, do you know anybody? And then I started freelancing then because he wanted to up my children without asking me, who were 5 and 3 at the time. So that's when I started Sempai. But go back 2 years before that, 3 years before that, and the reason I came out of consulting, I actually spent some time with Toyota Sensei in the UK for a couple of years, but we were traveling all over the place, learning loads. But then my wife became pregnant with our first child, and I was working away Sunday to Thursday. And I come from divorced parents, so I didn't want to have kids to come home to a list of things they'd done for the first time on a Friday night. So that's when I decided to jack it in and go back into industry and then go freelance.
I mean, of course, I see the rationale. I mean, Yaakov and I both have kids, and our families are so important to us, and just like you, is a big part of why we went independent. But the rationale and the reality are two different things, right? So when you make that leap, what did that feel like? What scared you then that doesn't scare you now, and what should have scared you that didn't scare you about starting a new company with a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old?
Well, it's funny now, my scaredy profile. So if you put scarediness on the y-axis and time on the x-axis, my profile has done that. So I wasn't scared at that point. Then mid 2010s, I became scared, and now I'm not scared again. I'll come back to that in a sec. But at the very start point, so typically, my wife and I have very different attitudes to risk. I'd be put it in the Venezuelan stock market with just 8 million chimps clinging to a rock, spinning through space. It'll work out okay. My wife is put it onto the mattress and put a lock on the bedroom door. So we and somewhere in there, our lives balance out well, and it does balance out well in most cases. But when I had the velvet line gum put to my head by my construction boss, who said, you're going to Savannah. The old boss who phoned me offered me a 3-month contract to begin with. So it's 3 months and then there's nothing, as you know. And then, so I came home to Steph, and as any slippery lean queen, I was trying to work out how to frame this. how to frame it for the optimum result for all of us. And to her credit, she said, I back you. If you think you can do the 3 months and then get more work, do it. So that backing pushed me over the line. And to be honest, I've never doubted if you pay attention, if you're committed, and if you any good at what you do, you will find more work. It's just a case of how much effort you're prepared to put in.
I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I think you just hit on a very important point that I can't let go away is, have you ever considered renaming the company from Sempai to Slippery Lean Queen?
I tell you what, it might actually work, mightn't it? Because in this, in the current zeitgeist where all we're doing is contributing to the great dustbin of noise out there,
Yeah.
and we're all trying to get our signal through the noise, I reckon that might be a stronger signal. And sure, it might appeal to a niche number of people, but we don't need 5,000 customers. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I'll do that this afternoon, and if it doesn't work out, I'll come back on, and Dan, I'm holding you to account, fella.
Oh man, yeah, my career was going great, so I met these two yahoos on a podcast.
That's right. It's a funny thing, but I call myself that, and I think it's an exercise in humility. As in, don't forget that it's a kind of memento mori in a professional sense. You too have massive gaps. Somebody about 5 years ago, I was in a kitchen at a party with a beer in my hand, and somebody told me about epistemology, not normal kitchen party commentary, but he told me about epistemology, and that changed my view of the world. So it's fabulous. Imagine a circle, yeah? And inside the circle is what you know. Outside the circle is what you don't know. Okay? And the border of the circle is what you don't know. And the thing is, as you get more skilled and more knowledgeable, your circle increases. So the area inside what you know gets bigger.
Yeah.
Of course, so does the border. But of course, there's always an infinite amount of stuff outside you will never know, because we can never know it all. But the border gets bigger. Now, the downside of that is you just get better at perceiving what you don't know. So you feel like you know less. So I'm happy now. The more that I spot my own gaps, the more that I understand what I see, what I don't understand, reassures me that I must be growing. Especially if I look back at the nonsense I was posting on LinkedIn 3 or 4 years ago, and I wince at it. At least I know that I've grown. and that kind of thing, that kind of thinking way is what you try to get through to your kids as well. Kaizen, every day a little up. Don't worry, you're never going to finish. You only get better. There is a thinking way as well as a tool way of passing lean onto your kids.
Yeah.
So how, would you imagine you being a founder of a company has informed you being a father, and vice versa? How has you being a father informed you being a leader of a company?
I like to think that I'm a better father because of it. In reality, I'm a better father because my wife had a more stable upbringing than I did. So I've kind of learned off her and her parents. But there is something about there is a Japanese phrase, monozukuri wahitozukuri, which means make good people to make good things. So your focus is on growing people, growing their knowledge. Your concern, as you'll know, is about how can I grow you so you can do this on your own? And that speaks to Sempai Kohai as well. And a phrase that I heard on a podcast, I was lucky. I intuitively grasped this, but I only later heard it expressed as this. It was that a fella came on and said, I'm not in the business of raising children. I'm in the business of raising adults.
Yeah.
And I think that sums up how a decent lean person can be informed as a dad. So you're always trying to push them to try stuff, slight discomfort, because later they will bank that discomfort as capability.
Yeah. So we something similar. My wife and I talk about. So I have 3 boys and a girl, and we talk about raising husbands and fathers and wives and mothers.
Oh,
So
yeah.
specifically in sort of how they're going to show up in those relationships is some of the values that we try to role model and then teach.
I think there are some pitfalls for raising adults rather than children. Do you find any pitfalls, things you have to remember about, not to push too hard on, or pitfalls not to go into?
Oh, yes, many. I think that when we think about raising husbands and fathers, and raising adults for that matter, it is the same way a plant or a tree or any sort of living thing takes time to grow. The patience and the investment is really where your work is.
Yeah.
Their work is the slow growth. So you need to have the patience for the slow growth
Yes.
when you're spending all this energy in the investment. And it's not a 1-to-1 ratio of I invest this amount of energy and I get out this amount of product when we're looking at raising adults and husbands and fathers or wives and mothers, because it's a lot of energy now with a very, very long-term ROI that you're hoping for, and very obviously unpredictable.
Yeah, that's a great way. That's never occurred to me. Because if we take your metaphor of saplings, the question becomes what shapes the sapling, and we tend to overstate our influence. I think peer groups, societal pressure, etc. We had a seminal moment at the dinner table. You bring your own cognitive biases and baggage into everything, and it's only occasionally you see clearly. For some reason, I have a problem with bad table manners. Always have. And anyway, our kids, they must have been pressing my buttons, but I got to the point where I was making every mealtime miserable because I was trying to reinforce their behavior. I was trying to shape the sapling too hard. There was nothing wrong with wanting good table manners, but the price we were paying for that, for trying to get that standard in place, the price was too high. And my wife said, "You're making every mealtime miserable." And that kind of coincided with me swapping roles. So when the kids were first born, because my upbringing was quite difficult, I was all for the harsh weather forces the tree to root deep. We're not going to molly them. We've all been here, and then they come out, and you want to wrap them in cotton wool forever. Fine, but I was a little bit Victorian as a father. I was quite strict for the first 5-6 years, and then I relaxed and quickly got to the advisor with occasional bark point. And I don't know if that's worked okay. They seem to be okay. But again, there is something in the lean thing about coaching, about how much is directive and how much isn't, and you're there when you're needed, but then you have to know when to encourage them. You spot the need, but to encourage them to come towards you because you know they need the help without forcing it. It's tricky, isn't it?
It is tricky. Yeah. I mean, I think I've seen you talk before about, being too close to the work, right? And being unable to see. And do you find similar with your family and your kids? Like, are we too close as dads to really actually be able to see the truth?
I think so. So how do we solve that then? How can we get some distance?
I don't know. Your kids are grown. I'm looking at you.
a lot of business trips. No, I'm just joking. I think like it's funny because it sounds similar a bit to you, Russell, in terms of you, at least for me, I rely on my wife to balance that out a bit. Similar to you, I think I came on strong when they were a bit smaller. I mean, I still have relatively small kids. My oldest is 17. My youngest is 8.
Right.
But she's more forgiving than I am, and more thoughtful, I think, than I am. And so she's one of the few people in my life, other than Dan, who is my other partner in life, who I actually will listen to and will have them check me. So that commitment to her, in terms of listening to her, has been something that's been helpful in being a better father and creating some of that distance.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a really good point. It's a really good point. I think it also helps to one of the best pieces of advice I got as a dad, and one thing that I discovered by accident, was to have a shared interest with them, some kind of interest. So my son and I both like movies, and for years I heard the opinion that Brad Pitt has one of the underrated IMDb's now. There is some dross in there. Brad Pitt has made 65 films to this point where he's a named participant. Yeah, the early stuff is not good. It's not strong. But my son and I both love movies. So once every 2-3 weeks, we settle down on a Friday or Saturday night and we watch an old Brad Pitt movie, and we're working through his IMDb. Now, that is a nice chance to share time with him, because we're sitting side by side, we can chirp on, we can have a laugh, we score the movies afterwards. And this is a bit like being a lean queen as well. You open the communication path, you make it so that people can come towards you. So that sitting side by side piece of advice I got years ago about don't talk to your child about something important like that. Sit side by side, driving, in a restaurant, in a bar. There is something open about that helps. And if you're watching a movie for us, a shared interest, then it's my chance to check in with him. Are you okay? And how's life treating you? Via a Trojan horse. So yeah, but lean thinking, lean influencing my children. So lean thinking, I was thinking about this, and there is a practical way it's influenced them. And that's, I'm very much into change points. So most things go wrong. 70% of accidents and defects in a factory happen when something has changed. There's been a change to man, machine, material, method, etc. So whenever something goes wrong in the house, I've been saying to them over the years, or with their bike, or with their iPod, did anything change? And it's hardwired in them now to A, look for abnormality, and B, to find change points and try to see the signal that caused that. And then you add into that a bit of problem solving ability, and you get a bit of capability that maybe wouldn't have been there. So that's helpful, the problem solving change point side of it. What's also helpful is Kaizen. So my daughter, when she was 18, she went to Greece. So this would have been 8 years ago. She took herself off to Greece, first time abroad on her own, to go and help with refugees. She hadn't done a risk assessment, single blonde female, and she was just going to head off. So I said to her, look, you're an adult. Do you mind if I walk you through a risk assessment? So we did a risk assessment that she has repeated since, about from here to the airport, from the airport to the first check-in, and then the second point, and then the room, what's she going to check for? So that structured way of thinking to keep her safe is useful. And then while she was there, she implemented something like 30 or 40 Kaizens in a morning meeting, because she has been wired to say, isn't there an easy way of doing that?
That's awesome.
I love it. If you were to look at your family as like a production line, what's how would you describe it? What's the one that flows? What goes in? What comes out? Like, how would you describe a family life as a production system?
Now that's interesting. So, so the system has a customer, and the first question always for a slippery lean queen is, who is the customer here?
Yeah.
And I guess society is the customer of this family.
Yeah.
As in, yes, we are all 8 billion monkeys clinging to a rock, spinning through space. But every day we die a bit, and there's not much purpose. But you may as well enjoy the ride. And while you're here, do your bit for society and contribute. So the production line is to create value. And if society is a customer, the value for me is raising kids who can contribute to society. They can look after themselves economically, so they're not reliant on anybody, and they can maintain the fabric of their bit of community, even while the world's in major upheaval. They can do their bit to keep their bit of society woven well together and working. Sorry, that turned a bit philosophical.
No, that's it.
No, I mean, it's I think that was the great place to go with that, because I mean, there's the easy way would have just been say like, oh well, the input is love.
But it is an interesting point. But then you come onto flow and you start to think, well, where does flow break down? And if I think in factory terms, there is a material flow and there is an information flow.
Yeah.
And the material flow, if you're a relatively functional family, then the material flow works. You get from A to B, people are eating, people are getting clothed, and they're getting washed. So the material flow will generally work, I guess, assuming you have enough money to live. It's the information flow. It's the communication flow, I think, which is where the production line breaks down.
Yeah.
I think probably some of my failings have come there. Impatient with, can't understand. Why isn't this obvious to you?
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. Do you know, one of my biggest lean home failings was around 5S. Can I tell you about this?
Yes.
So, both of my children had a preference to live in a feral manner in their bedrooms. My daughter, when she was an early teen, we agreed to let her take the room with nice big room with an ensuite on one condition. The 5S condition improved, and she looked after it. So I moved her in, agreed a plan. She said, yeah, sure. A couple of weeks later, awful. We went around and I said, look, we did say, and she said, yeah, I know, I'll try harder. Well, what specific things are you going to do? All of my lean training, what specific things? Let's work on two or three things. She did that. 2 weeks later, nothing. We ended up putting a 5S check sheet in with a really clear visual standard for the hit points. Failed, yeah? She wanted it. She signed up to it. Failed. So I failed there, and I know why I failed. She had the option for plenty of agency, but she had no skin in the game. She owned nothing in that room. She didn't have to pay for the replacement of anything or graft and be on the road to put anything in the room. So there is a key lesson there for me for reflecting back to work, which is the people in this area, have they been given a say and ownership? Not being told you own it, but has the feeling of ownership been nurtured so that they have skin in the game?
Yeah, kind of the difference of, doing lean with someone versus to someone.
Yeah. What's your 5S story?
So my wife comes from a prolific line of shoppers and hoarders, and her and I, in a good way, couldn't be any more different from one another. And she has this soul of somebody who went through the Great Depression. So she constantly thinks we're going to starve and that we're going to run out of food.
Okay.
And so we had moved into a house in Maryland, and we had a pantry for the first time. And so she sees the space and it's glorious, it's opportunity. It's I could fill it with things. And I'm a minimalist. I don't like clutter. I get very claustrophobic. And so one day I kind of had enough of the pantry. It had gotten out of control. There was cans here, cans there, cereal here, cereal there. So I started moving things around and reorganizing things. And while I was doing it, I was thinking through, okay, well, there's like things going with like things putting things in, eye level in the strike zone that you're going to use the most, and try to put some mistake proofing in there. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Only 12 boxes of cereal can fit on this one shelf, which in my mind is more than 2 adults need. But it'll mistake proof it. Like, you can't fit another box on here. Like, that's the end. And so of course that didn't play out that way. So I come home and I open the door. There's like boxes of cereal, like piled on top of, garbage bags at the top of the shelf. And I'm like, what? So I completely lost my mind. And of course, it was the same thing. I had gone and reorganized our space by myself, and I had imposed my thinking on what should go where. And I mistake proof something for a mistake that I perceived. And there was no engagement there. And so.
Well, but there's something fascinating behind that, something really relevant behind that crosses both worlds, and that's I mean, to be fair, objectively, that's a fairly significant safety stock of cereal. I'm with you, but
and I like cereal. Don't get me wrong.
but it takes us back to attribution error. And context is everything. So your wife clearly has a scarcity mindset, or had a scarcity mindset. Yeah. Something has created that. Maybe she's wired that way, or maybe it's an upbringing thing. But with resistance to change, people like us have to remember that this person isn't just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. Yeah. They're not resisting change because they woke up and said, right, I think I'm going to resist change today. Yeah. There is a context to it. And the attribution thing for us is, that person is blocking this, and actually they're not working against you. They're just working for themselves. And those two things aren't aligned at that point. Mm-hmm. And so it's incumbent on me in that situation to find out where the misalignment is.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that from a leadership standpoint, attribution or all the other sort of cognitive biases that could sort of pop up, or defenses that can reveal themselves, the reframing of those creates a path forward as opposed to a path of contention, where we often find ourselves at odds as opposed to, oh no, we're not at odds. We're just alongside each other, and they're seeing different road signs than we're seeing.
Yeah.
And when, just to share a quick story that's related, before we went full time into our company, I was the assistant director at health system in New York City. And I had a team over there, and we were doing a massive project that was in a lot of moving parts and people. Because of the nature of the project, there was a lot of both clinical people that we had to sort of work with, as well as legal and finance people, as they were making some changes for the staffing and the skills. And so with this team, I'd be in these meetings with the lawyers and the unions and the nurses and the doctors. And then I'd come back to my team and I'd say, hey guys, here's what, like, from all these sides we're hearing. And so for the next, couple of weeks, because things were changing so fast, here's what we're going to do. And I would get peppered with questions, and they would be challenging everything I'm saying. And I would immediately get frustrated by I'm sitting at these, it is not me. These are lawyers and doctors and nurses, and it's the business people. And we're here to execute on this huge, massive project. It ended up taking almost 2 years. And ultimately, I turned to my chief. I was complaining to her, and I was saying, I'm trying, and they're not like playing along, like they're fighting me on everything. And she said something to me that changed my life, really, at the time. And I've applied it to my family as well. She's like, Yaakov, you're totally wrong, and you're missing the point of leading a group of people. You're just missing it. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, they are not challenging you. They are asking you the questions that they need answers to do the job you're asking them to do. They are just saying, we have gaps over here in my road. Fill the gaps and let me run on the road. But you're seeing it as they're not willing to go. And they are willing to go. They just need those answers. So give them the answers and let them run, as opposed to fighting them on, no, you don't need answers to run. And it was, for me, it was a big moment of understanding that challenge, really, to what you were saying. It's not challenge necessarily. They're not stopping for the sake of doing it, right? There's something more that they are either resistant or not seeing, or they are seeing something I'm missing that perhaps we need to sort of give them the answers to move forward.
That's a great context reframe, though. I mean, that's pure NLP reframing, or whatever you want. That's perfect. But a question for you: are you aware of the broad change equation? It's really interesting. It's about resistance to change, and I guess it matters both with trying to operate as a family and also trying to run a business or trying to bring about change in businesses. I think about this a lot now. I think about ego a lot. I think about cadence. I think about alignment of incentives. R is resistance to change. That's got to be less than D, which is dissatisfaction with the status quo, times V, vision of a better place, times F, concrete first steps. Now, you could never plug numbers into that equation and come up with anything useful, but it's a great little indicator of the things you've got to pay attention to. So you are unlikely to overcome resistance to change if people aren't dissatisfied with the status quo, and of course you can agitate that. If you haven't given them a vision of a future state, which is why 2-second lean is so smart at going to look at other factories, because you're not saying, believe me, I'm a lean queen. I've seen better. Follow me to the promised land. And then F, concrete first steps, is, hey, first we'll do this, this, and this. Now, I like that equation because there are useful things in there. What you've added there, Yaakov, is another part of it, which is when there is qualify the R.
Right.
Understand the R might not be resistance to change. It is just seeking out information that will help them come down the path.
Yeah. And I think the R starts to reframe perhaps some of those other things, because once you realize that maybe it's not the level or the amount of resistance is either not as high as you thought, or not necessarily framed as resistance. So the equation begins to become unbalanced. Once those numbers shift, then the other ones become either heavier or lighter, depending on where you're going with it as well.
Yeah. It's true. And in terms of raising children, the fact that my wife had a strong, stable upbringing, and I managed to experience her parents and their relationship with her as a counterpoint to my upbringing, meant that I had a concrete image of how you could do it differently, which gave me something to take forward into being a father. An operating model that I could at least say, this is possible if I do these basic things.
Yeah. I thank God for Wives having good parents.
Amen to that. So yeah, but I'm guessing that no matter what path people follow, lean or not lean, then there's always valuable learnings either way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and it's, whether it's lean or something else, it's all about your thinking and the way you see things, right? And whether it's lean and you're saying, I want you to learn to see your process different, or whether it's a professor and I want you to see differently. Like it's all about vision, and
Yeah.
we all come at it from a different angle, but at the end of the day, it's about someone leading someone towards something that they don't quite understand yet. And so, yeah, I think that we found a lot of corollaries, regardless of industry. And
I think I would add that in addition to that, for the folks who are lean or organizational development perspective, is there's a formality to the thinking as opposed to the concepts to the thinking. And so for a lot of the other the industries or professions, I think there's an approach, a general, hey, this is how we operate, or this is what I've learned philosophically. But then I feel like from the lean standpoint and from the OD, from the leadership development standpoint, there's a lot more structure and there's sort of a path in which there is to walk, not simply philosophy or construct of, hey, you know what, this is what I believe. I believe there's beauty in everyone, which is great. And then so I can look for it. But we'll provide, well, here's how you look for it. Here's steps 1 through 10 that you look for it, not simply a general approach. And so I do think it's helpful from a life standpoint, as you've, articulated in many ways today.
one thing I think definitely makes the lean thinking different is just embedded in it is being a coach. And you said it earlier, when to ask questions, when to be directive. And, I think that is something that is definitely unique to the lean world, that translates directly into the home life. Because so much of it is about when to be directed, when to ask questions, when to pull your hair out, when to say, are we actually making progress here or not? And
It's true. Two points to make on that, on both of those. Were one comedy point and one serious point. And a comedy point is, so my wrap up of that is, I'm hearing slippery lean queens make the best dads.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Yeah, I thought so. I must go and break that news to my family, and I'll let you know how it goes. And the other point is, I used to bug my kids. I've just remembered now. There was a family meme, if you like, where my response to any question that involved a capability growing opportunity was, "What do you think?" That's Socratic, and the number of times they said, "Dad, I don't know what I think." Well, give me something, give me anything, and I'll help you weave a way through this. But you have to tell me, what do you think? And that came directly from my sensei, who was very hard on learning starts with a question, and we're not in the business of dropping worms into chicks' mouths here to mangle yet another metaphor. There has to be, and quite often in a factory, the assumption is that the perfect day for a production manager is when a supervisor comes to them and says, right, I'm okay on safety, I'm okay on delivery, quality, I've had a problem. The problem is this. I reckon I could do A, B, or C. My choice is B. Can you just confirm what you think? Any manager would snap your hand off for that kind of proactive thinking, I think.
Right.
And so that's where we're trying to get towards without ever actually getting there fully.
Russell, this was fantastic, and we loved having you on. We really appreciate
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Love talking to you, fellas.
And if folks are looking for you, how can they find you? Anything going on in your world that people need to know about?
As of Monday, they can find me at slipperyleanqueen.com.
Yep.
I'll be living in a hostel somewhere downtown a couple of months afterwards. No, it's at russell@sempai.co.uk. I'm on LinkedIn. Like everybody, I'm doing my bit to add to the dustbin of noise with the occasional gem in there.
All right, Russell. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gents.